A bank called me 3 weeks after my grandmother died. They said my name was on a safe deposit box that had been locked for 28 years. And whatever was inside was never meant for my mother to see. That didn't make sense. Because the day my grandmother died, my mom took everything. Not some things. Everything. The jewelry, the china, even the photo albums. Like she was trying to erase something before anyone noticed. And when I asked for just one thing, my grandmother's ring, she looked at me right in front of everyone and said, "You wouldn't even know what to do with it." No one said anything. No one defended me. Just silence, and for a moment, I believed her. I thought there was nothing left for me. I didn't know that for almost 30 years. My grandmother had been quietly putting something in my name. Something my mother couldn't touch, and couldn't explain. And when that box finally opened, it didn't just prove her wrong. It exposed everything. My mom was already packing when I walked in, not slowly, not carefully, fast, drawers open, closet half emptied, boxes already filling up like she'd been there longer than she should have. She didn't look up when I stepped inside. Didn't pause, didn't say hello. Just said, without turning, "Let's not drag this out." 3 weeks later, a bank would call me about a safe deposit box in my name. But that morning, I didn't know anything about that yet. All I knew was, she had started without me. The house still smelled like my grandmother. That part hadn't changed. Lavender, lemon polish, and something warmer underneath, like the kitchen still remembered her even if she wasn't in it anymore. But the way things were moving inside the housey, that had changed. I stepped further in. My boots made a dull sound on the wooden floor. The hallway felt tighter than I remembered, or maybe it just felt empty in the wrong way. A drawer slammed in the bedroom. Then another, quick, sharp. Final. I followed the sound. She was kneeling in front of the dresser. Velvet pouches lined beside her like she had already sorted them. A canvas tote open on the floor. Her hands moved quickly, too quickly. Not pausing to look, not hesitating, just picking things up and dropping them inside. "Mom." She didn't stop. Didn't even slow down. "Can I keep Grandma's ring?" The words came out steady. I didn't ask for everything. Just one thing. She zipped the bag closed. Slow this time. Deliberate. Like she wanted me to hear it. Finally looked at me. "Honey," she said, voice calm, almost patient. "I'm her daughter." A small pause. "These are mine now." No anger, no emotion, just certainty. She told me she wanted me to have everything, she added. Already turning away. Already done with the conversation. I stayed where I was, looking at the open drawer behind her, empty. Completely empty. I knew that wasn't true. Not because I had proof. Not because of anything written down, but because I knew my grandmother. She didn't think like that. She didn't divide people like that. My mom moved past me, already heading toward the next room, already collecting the next thing. By the time I stepped back into the hallway, cars had started pulling into the driveway, doors opening, voices coming closer. Family. They came in quietly, not slow, not loud, just careful. Like everyone understood something was happening, but no one wanted to be the one to name it. And still, no one stopped her. She was already in the dining room, the china cabinet open, every shelf exposed, newspapers spread across the table, plates stacked in neat piles. She moved efficiently, like she'd planned this, like she'd thought about the order. "Mom," I said again. She didn't look at me. "Can I take a few?" I asked. She used those every. "You don't have space for them." The words came quick this time. Sharpened. "I can make space," I said. That made her stop. "Just enough." She turned slightly. "Not fully. Just enough so the room could hear." "You live in a 1-bedroom apartment," she said. A beat. "What are you going to do with fine china?" Someone shifted behind me. A chair creaked. You wouldn't even know how to take care of it. That line landed differently, slower, heavier, not because it was loud, but because it wasn't. I looked around the room. Aunt Ruth stood near the doorway, arms folded tighter than usual. Tammy was wrapping plates, but her hands had slowed. One of the cousins stared at the table, like there was something written there he needed to understand. No one corrected her. No one said, "That's not true," just silence, and that silence, it settled into the room, made everything feel decided. By noon, the house didn't feel like hers anymore. The walls looked wrong, lighter where frames had been, darker where time had settled around them. The living room felt hollow, furniture gone, spaces exposed. I walked into the kitchen. That's where it slowed. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Because sitting near the sink, untouched, was her coffee mug, white, thin blue line around the rim. The handle chipped just enough to catch your thumb when you held it. I picked it up. Held it in both hands. For a moment, everything else disappeared. I could hear her again, moving around the kitchen, asking if I wanted toast. Telling me I worked too hard. Calling me sweetheart. Like it was the only thing that mattered. Are you taking that? My mom's voice. From the doorway. I looked up, she said. A small shrug. Like it didn't matter. I nodded. Yeah. I said. Just a mug. I walked out to my car with it. Didn't say anything else. Didn't ask again. I sat in the driver's seat. Didn't start the engine. Inside the house, things were still moving. Boxes filling, tape pulling tight, voices low and careful. I stared at the mug, and that's when it clicked. She wasn't just taking things. She was taking control of the house, of the story, of how this would be remembered. In her version, she was the one who stayed, the one who sacrificed, the one who deserved everything, and no one inside that house was going to challenge her. I looked back at the porch, at the open door, at what was left, and for the first time since my grandmother died, I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. Because somewhere, without me knowing, something had already been set aside. Something she couldn't take. Something she didn't even know existed. And when I found out what it was, everything she had just done, every word she said, was going to mean something very different. The call came the next morning, 7:12 a.m. I was standing in my kitchen, still quiet, still cold, pouring coffee into my grandmother's mug. My phone started ringing. Unknown number, local. I almost ignored it, but something about it made me stop. Hello. Is this Diana Hartley? The voice was calm, professional. Yes. This is Patricia Cole from First Heritage Bank. I leaned against the counter. I'm calling about a safe deposit box in your name. My grip tightened on the mug. I think there's a mistake, I said. Typing. No, Mom, she said. Box 1177. Registered under Diana R. Hartley since March of 1998. I was 6. That's not possible, I said. It was leased by Evelyn Marsh, she continued. You're listed as the sole authorized holder. My grandmother. She prepaid the lease for 28 years. I sat down, hard, on the kitchen floor. I didn't know anything about this, I said. That's not uncommon, she replied gently. I stared at the mug in my hand. A memory surfaced. Faint. A bench. A cold building. Ice cream melting too fast. Her hand squeezing mine. We did something important today, she had said. I never asked what she meant. Now I knew, or at least I was starting to. When can I come in, I asked. We open at 9? I nodded. Okay. The call ended. The kitchen felt too quiet. 28 years she had planned something that far back without telling anyone. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I stared at it. Deanna. Her voice was softer, careful. I've been thinking, she said. That alone felt wrong. We should talk, she continued. Maybe dinner this weekend. I didn't respond. Then, too casually, did your grandmother ever mention anything to you? There it was. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Anything she might have had. She was fishing." "I don't remember anything," I said. Silence. Careful measured. "I'm sure." She paused. Then, "Okay." But I could hear it. She didn't believe me. I set the phone down slowly. She knew something, not everything, but enough. I stood up, refilled the mug. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Because yesterday, I had felt small. But this felt different, clear. She thought she had taken everything. But she hadn't. Not even close. I looked at the clock. 03 a.m. less than an hour. I grabbed my keys. Stopped. Because once I opened that box, everything would change for me. For her. For everyone. I picked up my phone. Called Aunt Ruth. "I need to tell you something." A bank called me. Silence. Then softly. "I was wondering when that would happen." I froze. "You knew?" "Not everything," she said. "But your grandmother, she made plans." "For how long?" "Since your grandfather died. Everything aligned. She didn't trust your mother with money after that." Ruth added quietly. I didn't ask why. "I'm going to the bank," I said. "I know you are," she replied. A pause. "Whatever's in that box, she wanted you to have it." I nodded. Then I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. Because this time I wasn't going to watch something be taken. I was going to find out what had been mine all along. First Heritage Bank sat on the corner of Main and Birch. It was smaller than I expected. Not modern, not polished. Just steady. Brick walls, brass handles on the door. The kind of place that had been there longer than most of the people walking past it. I parked across the street, turned off the engine. Didn't get out right away. The envelope from yesterday sat on the passenger seat. My keys in my hand. The mug in the cup holder. I stared at the building. This didn't feel like something big. It felt quiet, ordinary, and somehow, that made it heavier. Because if my grandmother had really done something that lasted 28 years, it wouldn't be loud, it would be like this. I opened the door, stepped out, crossed the street. The bell above the bank door chimed when I walked in. The air inside was cool, still. It smelled like paper and time. A woman behind the counter looked up immediately. "Miss Hartley." I nodded. "I'm Patricia," she said, stepping out from behind the desk. Her voice matched the one from the phone. Calm, measured. "Thank you for coming in," she added. I handed her my ID. She didn't rush. She checked it carefully, compared it to something on her screen, typed, paused, looked again, then nodded. "Everything matches." That sentence felt final. "Come with me," she said. She led me past the main desk, down a narrow hallway. The walls were lined with framed photos. Old ones. Black and white. Main Street decades ago. People standing in front of buildings that still existed outside. It felt like walking through memory. At the end of the hallway, a heavy door. She unlocked it, pushed it open. The air changed immediately. Cooler, drier. The room was smaller than I expected. Metal boxes lined the walls, rows and rows of them, each one identical. Each one holding something someone thought was important enough to hide. She walked toward the back. Stopped in front of one. "That's yours," she said. She inserted a key, turned it. There was a soft click, then she stepped back. "I'll give you some privacy," she said gently. And just like that, I was alone. The room felt quieter without her, not silent, but contained. I stepped closer. The small metal door was open inside, a narrow drawer. I pulled it out slowly. It was lighter than I expected. I carried it to the small table in the center of the room, set it down. Then I stopped. Because suddenly, I wasn't ready. I didn't know what I was about to see. Money, papers, something else. Something that explained everything. Or something that didn't. I placed both hands on the table, took a breath, then opened it. There was only one thing inside. A manila envelope. Flat. Sealed. Nothing else, no jewelry, no stacks of cash, no dramatic reveal, just that. I stared at it for a long time. My name was written across the front. Not printed. For Diana. The handwriting hit me harder than anything else. Because I knew it. I had seen it my entire life. On birthday cards, on notes left on the kitchen counter, on the grocery lists she taped to the fridge. Careful, steady, unmistakable. I sat down slowly. The chair made a soft sound against the floor. My fingers hovered over the envelope. For a second, I didn't move, because opening it meant knowing, and knowing meant everything changing. I slid my finger under the flap. It wasn't glued, just tucked, like she wanted it to be easy. I opened it. Inside, 3 things: a folded letter, a document, and something thicker beneath them. I reached for the letter first. It felt right. The paper was slightly yellowed, edges soft from time. I unfolded it carefully. The date sat at the top. March 14, 1998. My chest tightened. I started reading. Dear Diana, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer here. I stopped. The room felt smaller. I kept reading. I hope you have grown into the kind person I always believed you would be. I am writing this because I know something you may not fully understand yet. My grip tightened on the paper. I love your mother. But I also know her. And I know what she will do when I am gone. The words settled heavily. Not surprising. Just confirmed. She has always wanted more than what was hers. A memory flickered. My mother in the bedroom. Velvet pouches. Fast hands. I swallowed. Kept reading. So I made sure that there is something she cannot take from you. The room went completely still. That line. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't luck. This wasn't an accident. This was planned, carefully, quietly. For decades, I lowered the letter slightly, looked at the rest of the envelope, the document underneath, the thicker paper. I hadn't even touched them yet, and already, everything I thought I knew about what had happened in that house felt incomplete. Because my grandmother hadn't just left something behind, she had prepared for something. For her. For my mother. For that exact moment. When I stood in that house and believed there was nothing left for me, I looked back down at the letter. My hands were steady now. Stronger than before. Because for the first time since she died, I didn't feel like I had lost something. I felt like I had just found something. And I hadn't even seen all of it yet. I read the letter again. Slower this time. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to. Every word felt deliberate, like she had chosen them carefully, knowing exactly when I would read them. I love your mother, but I also know her. That line stayed with me. Because it didn't sound angry, it didn't sound bitter, it sounded certain. I lowered the letter into my lap, took a breath, then reached for the next document. It was heavier. Official, a certificate. The paper was thick, not new but preserved. I unfolded it at the top. Certificate of deposit. My eyes moved down. March 1998, same date as the letter. Depositor Evelyn R. Marsh. Beneficiary Diana R. Hartley. I swallowed. $1,000. For a second, my brain didn't react. Then it did. $25,000. In 1998, I sat back in the chair. That wasn't just money. That was intention. I looked closer. There were notes attached, clipped together, interest, years, calculations. A small handwritten estimate in the corner of $50,000, $65,000. I exhaled slowly, not because of the number, but because of what it meant. She hadn't just saved something, she had planned for it to grow, quietly. Over time, without telling anyone, without telling me. I placed the certificate on the table, carefully. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me, because yesterday, I had stood in a house where I was told I didn't understand value, and now, I was holding something she had trusted me with before I even knew what money was. It wasn't just the amount. It was the fact. She had believed in me that early. I looked back at the envelope. There was still one more document, folded thicker than the others. I picked it up, unfolded it. It took a second to register, because it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a bank form, it was a deed. Legal description at the top. I leaned forward. Read it again. Owner: Diana R. Hartley. Transfer type: quitclaim deed. Date: I blinked. Land: she had transferred land to me. When I was 6 years old, I scanned the description. 2 acres, edge of Millbrook, and suddenly, I could see it. The field, the tree, the blanket spread out in the grass. Her sitting beside me, pointing at birds like she had all the time in the world. Like she already knew. One day I would come back here and understand. I sat back. She hadn't just saved money. She had given me something permanent. Something that didn't disappear. Something no one could pack into a box and carry away. I let that sit. Because this wasn't just protection. This was foresight, and she had done it without ever saying a word. I reached back into the envelope. There was one more piece. A small slip of paper, handwritten, an account number, a bank name, Valley Federal Credit Union, balance of $40,000, payable on death. To me, I stared at it. 3 separate things: money, land, another account, all outside of everything my mother had just taken. All outside of her control. All set up decades ago. I leaned back in the chair. The room felt different now. Not quieter. Not louder. Just clear. Because for the first time, the story made sense. My grandmother hadn't trusted my mother. Not fully. Not after something. Something that had happened long before I understood any of it. And instead of arguing, instead of confronting, she had prepared. Quietly. Completely. I looked down at the letter again. So I made sure there is something she cannot take from you. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. She hadn't just been right. She had been precise. And she hadn't just left something behind. She had been protecting me from my own mother. That was the part that settled deepest. Not the money. Not the land. The truth. That she had seen this coming and made sure I would survive it. I gathered the papers slowly, placed them back into the envelope. For a second, I just sat there. Because the number didn't matter. Not really. It wasn't about the money. It was about what she had seen. Years before anyone else. And what she had done about it. A soft knock broke the silence. The door opened slightly. Miss Hartley. Patricia's voice. I looked up. I'm okay, I said. She stepped inside, paused. Her eyes moved briefly to the envelope, then back to me. There was something in her expression. Not curiosity. Not surprise, recognition. Like she had seen this moment before. My grandmother planned all of this, I said. Patricia nodded gently. Some people do, she said. Her voice was careful. Respectful. But not everyone follows through the way she did. I held the envelope a little tighter. She didn't want my mother to know, I said. Patricia didn't respond right away. Then, that happens too. Another pause. If you'd like, she added. I can help you with next steps. Next steps. That word stayed with me. Because this wasn't over, not even close. This was just the part where I understood. Now came the part where everything else caught up. I think I need to talk to someone first, I said. She nodded. Of course. I stood up. The room didn't feel as heavy anymore, still serious, still important, but no longer uncertain. I walked back through the hallway, past the old photographs, past the quiet desk, back into the light. The world outside hadn't changed. People still walked. Everything looked the same. But it wasn't, because now, I knew something no one else did. Something my mother definitely didn't know. And something she wasn't going to be able to explain away. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. Scrolled. Stopped at a name. Gerald Fenn, the attorney. The one she had trusted, the one who knew. I stared at the screen for a moment, then pressed call. Because whatever she had started back then, someone else had been protecting it ever since. Gerald Fenn's office was 4 blocks from the bank. Same quiet feeling. A small brass sign by the door. Fenn and Associates Estate Planning. Nothing flashy, no glass walls, no polished lobby. Just a place that looked like it had been there long enough to matter. I parked outside, sat for a second, the envelope in my hand. Then I went in. The bell above the door rang softly. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "My name is Diana Hartley," I said. "I spoke with Mr." Her expression changed. "Just slightly, of course," she said. "He's expecting you." That word, expecting, landed heavier than it should have. She gestured toward a hallway. "Second door on the left." I walked down slowly. The carpet muted my steps. The door was already open. "Miss Hartley." He stood as I entered. Gerald Fenn was older than I expected, white hair, measured posture, a tie that looked like he wore it every day, not because he had to, but because that's just who he was. "Please?" he said, motioning to the chair across from him. I sat, placed the envelope on the desk between us. He didn't open it right away. He looked at me first. He asked. I nodded. I opened the box. A small pause. Then, I exhaled. "She planned everything." He gave a slight nod, like he already knew the answer. "Yes," he said, not surprised, not impressed, just confirming. He reached for the envelope, opened it carefully, looked through each document, not like he was discovering them, like he was checking something he had already seen before. "That's all of it," he said after a moment. "All of it?" I asked. He looked up. "Everything she set aside outside the estate," he clarified. That phrase clicked into place. "So my mother," I started, "has no claim to any of this." He finished calmly, no hesitation, no uncertainty. "She can't touch the certificate," he continued. "She can't challenge the land transfer, and the payable on death account transfers directly to you." I leaned back slightly. "She doesn't even know it exists," I said. He studied me for a second. "She suspected," he replied. That made me sit up. "What do you mean?" He folded his hands on the desk. "Your grandmother was careful," he said, "but not invisible." A pause. "She came to me in 1997, the timeline again. Shortly after your grandfather passed." He added. I didn't interrupt. "She told me something very specific," he continued. His voice stayed even. "Professional," she said. "My daughter will take everything when I die." The words landed harder than I expected. Not because they were new. Because they had been said out loud. Years ago. She didn't say it with anger, he added. She said it like a fact she had already accepted. I looked down at the envelope. "So she came to you," I said slowly. "To make sure you were protected," he finished. He leaned back slightly. "We spent several months putting this together," he said. I repeated. He nodded. "She didn't rush decisions," he said. "She reviewed everything. Asked questions, made adjustments." That sounded like her. Calm, patient, certain. "She wanted everything separate from probate," he continued. "Why?" I asked. He looked at me directly. "Because probate can be influenced," he said. That answer stayed in the air. "She didn't trust the process," I asked. "She didn't trust the people involved in it," he replied. Silence. Then, "She mentioned a situation from the past," he added. I felt my chest tighten slightly. "What situation?" He hesitated, just for a moment. Then, "Your mother borrowed money from her in 1996, he said. I didn't move. $8,000, he continued. That number again. "From the letter." "She never paid it back," he said. I looked down. "She didn't mention it again either," he added. That felt familiar. Not the situation, the pattern. "She told me that was the moment things changed," he said. I swallowed. "She still loved your mother," he added. A pause. But she stopped trusting her. That line stayed with me, because it explained everything. Not dramatically, not emotionally, logically. She didn't argue, he said. She didn't confront. Another pause. She made a plan. I let out a slow breath. That was exactly what it felt like. Not revenge, preparation. Why didn't she tell me? I asked quietly. He leaned forward slightly. Because she didn't want you to depend on it, he said. That hit differently. She wanted you to build your life on your own first, he added. I thought about my apartment, my job, my student loans. She believed you would, he said. A small pause. And she was right. For a second, I didn't know what to say, because that wasn't about money. That was about something else, something deeper. Is there anything my mother can do? I asked. He shook his head. No. Simple, final. All of this was done legally, he said, and long before any claim could be made. I nodded slowly. So what happens now? I asked. He closed the folder. That depends on you, he said. I looked at him. You can keep this private, he continued, or you can make it known. I thought about the house, the dining table, the silence. She's already telling her version, I said. He nodded. They usually do. That answer was too calm, too familiar. I don't want to fight, I said. He studied me for a moment. You don't have to, he said. A pause. But you should understand something. I waited. Truth has a way of becoming public, he said. That line settled deep, because this wasn't just about documents anymore. This was about what came next. I stood up slowly. The envelope in my hand felt different now, not heavier. Thank you, I said. He nodded once. She was a very careful woman, he said. I paused at the door. Yeah, I said quietly. I stepped outside. The air felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, just certain. Because now, I didn't just know what she had done. I knew why, and I knew something else too. My mother had been telling a story for years, and now, for the first time, that story had an ending she didn't control. My phone started ringing before I even got home. I was still in the car, parked outside my apartment, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. The screen lit up. Mom, I stared at it, didn't move. It rang, stopped, then again, this time longer. I let it ring out. A message came in seconds later. Not can we talk? Not are you okay, we need. I unlocked the phone, typed nothing, locked it again. Another message. I know you found something. My grip tightened slightly. So she did know. Not everything. But enough. I stepped out of the car, closed the door slowly. The evening air felt colder than it should have. Another call. I answered this time. Donna. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was tight, controlled. What did you find? She asked. No greeting, no pause. I walked toward my building. What do you mean? I said. A short breath on the other end. Don't do that, she said. You think I don't know? There it was, the shift. She wasn't asking anymore. She was trying to control it. Then, what bank? Her voice changed again, smaller, faster. First Heritage, I said. Another pause. What did they tell you? She asked. I stopped walking. They told me the box was in my name, I said. The silence that followed, not confusion, recognition. You opened it, she asked. Yes. Another pause. What was inside? She said. That question hung there. Not curious, calculating. I thought about the envelope, the documents, the letter. I'm still going through it, I said. Not a lie, just not everything. Her voice dropped. Deanna, you need to understand something. There it was, that tone. The one she used when she wanted to reshape reality. Anything your grandmother had, it wasn't in her estate, I said. I didn't raise my voice, didn't interrupt harshly, just said it. Clear. She stopped, completely. For a second, there was nothing on the line. Then, that's not possible, she said. but it didn't sound confident. It sounded rushed, like she was trying to catch up to something that had already moved past her. "It is," I said. Another pause. "You don't understand how these things work," she said quickly. There it was again. The same line, different version. I leaned against the railing outside my building. "I understand enough," I said. Silence. Then, "What exactly did you find?" she asked again. More careful. I looked out at the street. Cars passing, people walking. Everything normal. Except this. "I'll let you know when I'm done reviewing it." I said, a long pause. Then, "You don't get to do that," she said. There it was. Not fear. Control. "I'm handling your grandmother's estate," she continued. "I need to know everything." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "You're handling what's in the estate," I said. Another pause. "And this isn't part of it." Silence. Heavy this time. Then, "Who told you that?" she asked. I didn't answer. "Was it Ruth?" she pressed. "Tammy?" Still nothing. "You've been talking to people," she said. Her voice rising slightly now. "Mum," I said quietly. She stopped. "I'm not doing this with you right now." That line landed differently than anything I had said before, because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't emotional. It was final. She heard it. I could tell. "You think you're in control here," she said. There it was again, that need, that pressure. "I think I'm informed," I said. Another pause. Then, "Fine," she said. Sharp. "Then we'll talk about this with everyone." My chest tightened slightly. "What does that mean?" I asked. "I'm calling a family meeting," she said. Of course she was. Same move, different situation. "This Saturday," she continued. "My house." She didn't ask. She told. "I expect you to be there." I didn't respond right away, because I knew what she was doing. She wasn't trying to understand. She was trying to control the narrative before I had the chance to change it. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's not optional," she replied immediately. I almost smiled, because now I could see it clearly. The same pattern, the same pressure. Just this time it wasn't working. "I'll let you know," I said, and then I hung up. I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand. The air felt different now. Not calm, not tense, just decided. Because this wasn't about the house anymore, or the things she had taken. This was about something bigger. The version of the story she had been telling for years. And what would happen when that version stopped working? A group message. Family thread. Family meeting. Saturday, 10 a.m. My house. "We need to finalize things." I stared at it. Same tone, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I locked my phone, walked upstairs, set the envelope on the kitchen table, looked at it for a long time, then sat down, because now, this wasn't just about what she had done, it was about what I was going to do next. I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. Saturday morning came faster than I expected. I didn't rush. Didn't overthink it. I got dressed the same way I always did. Simple, neutral. Like this was just another day. But it wasn't. I picked up the envelope from the kitchen table. Then set it back down. Not yet. I walked out without it. Because this part wasn't about proving anything. Not yet. It was about watching. My mother's house sat at the end of a quiet street. Clean driveway. Fresh landscaping. Everything exactly the way she liked it. Controlled. I parked across the street. Sat there for a moment. Cars were already in the driveway. Of course they were. She would have made sure of that. Closed the door. Walked toward the house. The front door was already open. Voices inside. Low. Careful. The same tone as the day we cleaned out Grandma's house. I stepped in. The room was already set. Dining table cleared, chairs placed evenly. Papers spread across the surface like this was something official. My mother stood at the head of the table, not sitting. standing. Like she was leading something. Like she had already decided how this would go. She looked up when I entered. Her expression didn't change much. "The tension behind it, you're late," she said. "I'm on time," I replied. A small pause. Then she nodded once. Like she wasn't going to fight that part. Not yet. I looked around the room. Aunt Ruth sat near the corner. Hands folded tightly in her lap. Leaning back, but not relaxed. Gary and his wife across the table. Everyone quiet. Everyone waiting. No one speaking first. "Sit." I did. Not slowly. Not carefully. Just sat. She picked up a set of papers. "I want to make this quick," she said. Her voice was calm, measured. The same tone she used when she wanted something to sound reasonable. "These are standard documents," she continued. She tapped the top page lightly. "Consent forms. So we can finalize everything without complications." Everything. That word again. She slid the papers slightly forward. "All of this just confirms that I'll handle the estate moving forward," she said. There it was. Not a suggestion. A statement. I didn't touch the papers. Neither did anyone else. A long silence settled over the table. "You can look them over," she added. No one moved. I glanced at Ruth. She didn't look up. Tammy's jaw tightened slightly. Gary shifted in his seat. But still, nothing. My mother exhaled quietly. "Look, I know this is difficult," she said. Her voice softened. "I've been the one handling everything." There it was, the narrative. The same one. "I was there every day," she continued. "I took care of her." I felt something shift slightly inside me. Not anger, recognition. Because I had heard this before, many times, just never like this. Not this rehearsed. "You showed up when you could," she added. That line hung in the air, not direct, but pointed, carefully placed. "I did what I could," I said. My voice stayed even. She smiled slightly, not warm, controlled. "Of course you did," she said, a small pause. "But this isn't about feelings." Her fingers tapped lightly against the papers. "This is about responsibility." There it was again. The shift, from emotional to authority. "And I'm the one best equipped to handle that," she said. No one challenged her. No one agreed either. Just silence. Heavy, deliberate. I leaned back slightly in my chair, looked at the papers, then back at her. "You sold Grandma's ring," I said. The room froze. Completely. Her hand stopped moving. Her expression didn't break, but it changed, just enough. "What?" she said. Like she hadn't heard me. "You sold it," I repeated. No emotion, no accusation, just a fact. Tammy shifted. Gary looked up. Ruth finally lifted her head. My mother let out a short breath. "That was mine," she said quickly. Too quickly. I needed the money. There it was, not denial. Just justification. "That wasn't yours to sell," I said. Her voice sharpened. "I am her daughter." The same line again. Like it explained everything. I looked around the room. No one moved. No one supported her. But no one stopped her either. And that was the part she was counting on. She took a step forward. "This is exactly why we're here," she said, her voice lower now, focused. "You don't understand how these things work." There it was again. The same idea, different words. "You think showing up occasionally makes you." "I'm not signing anything," I said. I didn't raise my voice, didn't interrupt harshly, just said it. Cleanal. The room went still again. My mother stared at me. For a second, she didn't respond. Then, "That's not how this works," she said. "It is for me," I replied. A longer silence this time, the kind that shifts something. Because now, it was change. Real change. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said. "No," I said quietly. "I'm just not making it easier for you." That landed. I saw it. In the way her posture shifted, in the way her expression tightened. Because that wasn't something she could redirect. That wasn't something she could control. The room felt smaller now. Not physically, but emotionally. Everyone aware, everyone watching. And for the first time, she wasn't the one leading it. She looked around the table, waiting for someone to step in, for someone to support her, for someone to restore the version of events she had already decided was true. No one did. Ruth looked down again. Tammy didn't move. Gary avoided eye contact, silence, and that silence, this time, wasn't protecting her, it was exposing her. She picked up the papers again. Held them tighter. "We're not done here," she said. Her voice wasn't calm anymore. Not controlled, just strained. I stood up slow. Deliberate. "We're not," I said. And for the first time I meant it, because this wasn't over. Not even close. No one spoke after that. Not immediately. The room stayed still. Heavy. My mother stood at the head of the table, papers still in her hand. But she wasn't reading them anymore. She was watching me, waiting. For me to explain myself, for me to back down, for me to correct whatever she thought I had just broken. I didn't. I stayed standing, hands relaxed at my sides. For the first time, I wasn't trying to keep the peace. And she could feel it. "You don't get to walk in here and make accusations," she said finally. Her voice was steady again, controlled. But not the same. There was something underneath it now. Pressure. "I didn't make an accusation," I said. I kept my tone even. I stated something that already happened. Her jaw tightened. "That ring was mine," she said. Again, like repetition would make it true. I didn't respond, not right away. Because this wasn't about the ring anymore. That was just the beginning. "You're misunderstanding things," she continued. Her voice softer now, careful. "This is exactly why I wanted to handle everything properly." I almost smiled, because I had heard that version before. The calm explanation, the controlled tone, the idea that everything she did was reasonable if you didn't look too closely. "I went to the bank," I said. That stopped her again, completely. The room shifted slightly, not visibly. "But you could feel it." "Which bank?" she asked. Her voice didn't rise. It narrowed. "First Heritage," I said. A pause. Her fingers tightened around the papers, just enough to notice. "And," she said, "there it was." Not curiosity, calculation. I looked around the table. Everyone was watching now, not just listening, watching. Waiting. "I found something Grandma left," I said. Simple, no details, no emotion, just truth. My mother exhaled slowly. "That would be part of the estate," she said immediately, automatic. Like she had already decided how this would go. "It's not," I said. The words landed clean, no hesitation, no room to adjust them. Silence followed, different this time, not passive, active. My mother looked at me. Really looked this time, trying to read something she hadn't expected. "That's not how that works," she said. But the certainty was gone. "It is when it was never in the estate to begin with," I replied. I could feel the room shift again. Tammy leaned forward slightly. Gary's wife glanced at him. Ruth didn't move, but her attention was fully on me now. "What are you talking about?" my mother asked. The question came faster this time, less controlled. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I turned, walked toward the door. Every movement slow, deliberate. The room stayed silent behind me. I reached the hallway, then the front door. Opened it. The air outside felt cooler, grounded. My car sat exactly where I had left it. I walked to it, opened the passenger door. The envelope was still there, right where I had placed it that morning. I picked it up, held it for a second. Because this was the moment everything changed, not just for me, for everyone in that room. I closed the car door, turned, walked back toward the house. The door was still open. Of course it was. She hadn't expected me to leave. But she hadn't expected me to come back like this either. I stepped inside. Every eye moved to the envelope in my hand. No one spoke, not even her. I walked back to the table, set the envelope down in the center. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just placed it there. My mother stared at it, didn't touch it. "What is that?" she asked. Her voice had changed. Quieter. Not soft. Just careful. I didn't answer right away. I looked around the room, made sure everyone was watching, because if this was going to happen, it needed to happen clearly. "It's everything Grandma made sure you wouldn't have access to," I said. The words landed heavier than anything else I had said so far. No one moved. No one reacted. But you could feel it, the shift. My mother's hand slowly lowered to the table. Her fingers brushed the edge of the envelope, then stopped. Like touching it too quickly might confirm something she wasn't ready to accept. "That doesn't make any sense," she said. But it wasn't strong. "It does," I said. I reached forward, opened the envelope. Slow, deliberate. I pulled out the letter first, didn't hand it to her, didn't slide it across the table. I kept it in my hand, because this part needed to be heard, not skimmed, not interpreted, understood. "This was written in 1998, I said. That word hung in the air, before any of this, before today, before her version of events even existed. My mother's face didn't change, but something behind it did. I unfolded the paper. The room stayed completely silent. Even the small sounds, the shifting of chairs, the quiet breathing, felt louder. I looked down at the page, then up again, at all of them, at her, and for the first time, I wasn't reacting to what she had done. I was about to show everyone what had already been done. Long before this moment ever started, I took a breath and began to read. I unfolded the letter. The paper felt thinner now. Or maybe my hands felt steadier. I didn't rush, because this was the moment everything changed. "Dear Diana," I read. My voice didn't shake. "If you are reading this, it means I am no longer here." The room stayed silent. No one moved. "I hope you have grown into the kind person I always believed you would be." I paused for a second, not for effect, just to breathe, then continued. "I am writing this because I know something you may not fully understand yet." I looked up briefly. At my mother. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at the paper, like she was trying to read it before I finished. "I love your mother," I continued. That line hit the room differently. Not sharp, not harsh, just honest. "But I also know her." A shift, subtle, but real. Tammy leaned forward. Ruth's hand moved to her mouth. "And I know what she will do when I am gone." Silence. Deeper now. Because now, it wasn't just a letter. It was a mirror, held up in front of her. She has always wanted more than what was hers. My mother's hand tightened on the edge of the table, just slightly, but enough. "So I made sure there is something she cannot take from you." That line landed, heavy, permanent. No one looked away now. No one pretended not to hear it. I lowered the paper for a second, not because I was done, because I wanted them to feel it. Then I continued. "What is in this envelope is yours, legally and completely." I reached into the envelope, pulled out the certificate, held it up. "The certificate of deposit," I said. No one spoke. "Opened in 1998, in my name." Gary leaned back slowly. Tammy exhaled under her breath. I placed it on the table, then the next document. "The land," I said. I unfolded it. "Transferred to me the same year." My mother finally looked up. Her expression wasn't anger, it was calculation, trying to understand what this meant, how far it went. Then I placed the last paper down. "At another account," I said, "payable to me." The room stayed quiet. No one questioned it. Because they didn't need to. They could see it. They could feel it. This wasn't something I had created. This was something that had already existed. For decades. Outside of her control. "That's not," my mother started, then stopped. Because there was nothing to argue with. No interpretation. No angle. Just facts. "This was done in 1998, I said. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't push. Just repeated it, because that part mattered. That's before any of this? I added. Before the house. Before the estate. Before her version of the story. My mother shook her head slightly. She started. But she couldn't finish it. Because the letter was still in my hand, and everyone in the room had heard it. She was manipulated, she said finally. The words came out fast. She didn't know what she was doing. Gerald Fenn's name almost came to my mind. The paperwork. The legal clarity. But I didn't say it. I didn't need to. Because the room already understood. This was done when she was fully capable, I said. Calm. She made this decision. A long silence followed. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. Because it's already saying everything. Ruth stood up slowly. Not dramatic, just steady. She walked toward the table. Looked at the letter. Then at my mother. Evelyn knew, she said quietly. That was it. Not an argument. Not an accusation. Just truth. Tammy nodded once. Gary looked down. No one defended her, no one supported her, and for the first time, she noticed. Really noticed. Her control wasn't gone all at once. It didn't collapse loudly, it slipped. Quietly. The way things do when they've been built on something that isn't solid. This isn't fair, she said. Her voice lower now, not sharp. Not controlled. Just thinner. I'm her daughter. The same line. But it didn't land the same anymore. Because now, everyone could see the difference. Between what she said, and what had actually been done. I placed the letter back on the table. I didn't come here to fight, I said. My voice stayed calm. I came here so everyone knows the truth. No one argued. No one interrupted. Because there was nothing left to question. The story she had been telling had already been replaced. Not by me, but by something written long before I ever had to say it out loud. I stepped back slightly. Gave the room space. Let them sit with it. Because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about understanding. And they did. I could see it. In the silence. In the way no one looked at her the same way anymore. In the way she sat there, with nothing left to control. No one tried to stop me when I left. Not my mother, not anyone else in the room. The door closed behind me the same way it always had. Soft, familiar. But everything inside it had changed. I stood on the porch for a moment. The air felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just settled. Because for the first time, there was nothing left to prove. I walked to my car. Sat down. The envelope rested beside me. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. I already knew what was inside. And more importantly, I understood what it meant. My phone buzzed. A message. Ruth, I'm proud of you. I stared at it for a second. Then typed back. I didn't do anything. A moment later, her reply came. You stopped staying quiet. That stayed with me. Because she was right. This hadn't been about money. Not really. It had been about something I hadn't even realized I was carrying. Silence. Years of it. Letting things go. Letting things slide. Letting someone else decide what was true. And for the first time, I hadn't done that. I started the car. Drove home. The road felt the same. The traffic, the turns. But I didn't feel the same driving through it. When I got back to my apartment, it felt smaller than it had the day before. Not worse, just clearer. The table, the chair, the quiet. Everything exactly where I had left it. But now, it didn't feel like something temporary. It felt like something I had built. On my own. I set the envelope down on the kitchen table, next to my grandmother's mug. The chipped handle caught the light just slightly. I reached for it. Held it the same way I always did. And for a moment, it felt like she was still there, not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that needed words. Just present. Certain. The next few days passed quietly. No more calls from my mother. No more messages, just silence. But this time, it wasn't the same kind. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't waiting for something. It was distance. The kind that comes when something finally settles into place. Ruth called me later that week. "They're not signing anything," she said. I leaned back in my chair. "I figured." She tried to push it. Ruth added. But no one agreed. That didn't surprise me, not after what they had heard. "Gary said it didn't feel right," she continued. "Tammy backed him up." I nodded. Not because I needed the confirmation, but because it mattered. Not for me. For them. Because for once, they hadn't stayed silent either. "She's not handling it well," Ruth said after a pause. I didn't ask what that meant, I already knew. Control doesn't disappear easily, it fights. It runs out of space. "I'm not getting involved," I said. "You don't have to," Ruth replied. Another pause. She made her choices. That line stayed with me, because it was simple and true. A week later I drove out to the land, the same road, the same turn. The field opened up in front of me, exactly the way I remembered it. The tree still there, standing in the same place it had always been. I stepped out of the car, walked toward it. The grass moved softly under my feet, the air felt open, uncomplicated. I stopped beneath the tree, looked around, and for the first time, I saw it differently. Not as something I had visited, but as something that belonged to me. Not given out loud, not announced. Just placed there quietly waiting. I sat down. The envelope stayed in the car. Because this moment wasn't about what was inside it. It was about what it represented. She hadn't just left me something. She had trusted me. Before I knew how to ask for it. Before I knew I would need it. She had seen something in me, before anyone else had, and she had protected it, quietly, completely. I looked up at the tree. The branches moved slightly in the wind, the same way they had years ago. Nothing about this place had changed. But everything about how I stood in it had, because I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't asking. I wasn't trying to be seen. I already was. I stayed there for a while, then stood up, walked back to the car, sat inside, the envelope still there. I picked it up, held it for a second, then placed it back down. Because I didn't need to open it again, I had already taken what mattered from it. And it wasn't the money. It wasn't the land. It wasn't the account. It was the truth. That someone had seen me clearly. Even when the loudest voice in the room said I wasn't enough, I started the engine, drove away, and for the first time, I wasn't leaving something behind. I was carrying it with me.